Be'ez Hashem, we're going to continue with the Zohar in this week's Parsha. The Zohar in this week's Parsha, in this week's Torah reading, is the Parsha's Ekev, and the Zohar begins with the Rai Mehemna, and it's a part of the Zohar, the different parts of the Zohar Kodesh, and the Zohar says like this. It'll be that you'll follow these practices, these mitzvahs. It says in this week's Parsha that you'll eat, you'll be satiated, be satisfied, and then you'll bless and say a blessing to Hashem, your God. Says the Zohar, this pekuda, this mitzvah, this command, this demand, is the idea of to make a blessing, to bless to bless HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Creator. But specifically, the language of the Zohar is Kutcher Baruch Hu, the Holy One. For everything that a person eats and drinks and has pleasure from this world. So the pasuk says, "V'chalta v'savarta," when you eat, which means when you enjoy from this world, when you're taking in from this world, whether it's food, drink, or any other pleasures, you should make a blessing. Seemingly, the Zohar is talking about the Bracha min Torah, the Bracha that's a mitzvah min Torah, to bless after you eat, not the Bracha before eating. Because v'chalta savata, like the Gemara says, v'chalta savata literally means v'chalta savata. It means when you eat and you're satiated and you feel satisfied, you should make a blessing. But this is not the blessing that you say, which is the Rabbanan from the sages to say before you eat. That's a kal v'char. The Gemara says in the beginning of Ketzim Uvarchim, Daf Lamed Hein, in Brachas, the Gemara speaks about this idea that if you're satiated, if you have to make a blessing, certainly before, if you're hungry, you have to make a blessing. And the Gemara says many things. If you don't, it's like your mal and your moel b'hegdish or your geisel. The Gemara gives some different examples of what the issue is. But here the Zohar seemingly is speaking about specifically the blessing that you recite after you eat. And if a person does not bless, does not say a blessing, is not grateful, is not thankful, this person is considered a thief, that he's stealing from the Holy One. Again, this idea that Goyzim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Gemara also, Goyzim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Gemara also, the Talmud also mentions this idea, but there it's talking about the beginning blessing, the bracha in the beginning. Apparently the Zohar over here is talking about the bracha at the end, after eating, and the Gemara over there is clearly speaking about the bracha, the blessing that you say before you eat. But you're considered a thief, you're stealing from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Ekev, the Gemara also brings down, the Ekev goizel aviv v'imay. A person is thieves, steals from his mother and his father. So the father represents Kutcher Baruch Hu, the Holy One. And Imay, the mother, the Gemara says over there, represents Knesset Yisrael, Malchus. So if someone does not recite a blessing after they eat, it's if they're stealing. So it says the Zohar, V'kamino Chavraya, the Chavraya, the Holy Ones, the Holy Community has already established. Begin the Vorch Barnash L'Kutcher Baruch Hu, because a blessing that a person blesses the Holy One, this person draws down through the reciting of the blessing. So through a person's reciting a blessing, drawing down from the source of life. And where are they drawing down this blessing from the source of life? We say that a bracha, baruch, the idea of a blessing is not that Hashem is blessed, but that Hashem is the Mekor Kol HaBrachas, is the source of all blessings. Or literally in the acronym of the word Baruch, is Reish Kol Brachas, the source of all blessings, that you are the source of all blessings, that through a blessing you're drawing down, and that's why the letters of Baruch, Beis, Reish, Chaf are the second letters. The third Beis is number 2, Chaf is number 20, and Reish is 200. That's the single digits and the 10 digits and the 100 digits that you have in the 22 letters of the Aleph Beis. So it represents the idea of Reish Kol Brachas. You're drawing down from the source of all blessings. You're drawing it down. Lahavrich, you're making a connection in the Berkayim into the place of the knees. You're drawing it all the way down into the place of the duality, into the 2, the 20, and the 200s. That's the idea of the blessing. But the Zohar specifically says that when a person recites a blessing after they eat, they're drawing down blessings. They're drawing down life from the source of life, Makor HaChaim. And this essentially is the intention when a person says Beracha. Doesn't mean that Hashem, you are blessed, but you are the source of all blessings. But where are you drawing down the blessings? So the Zohar says very clearly, L'shmei Kadisha D'Kudsha Brichu. You're drawing it down to the name of the Holy One. La'arka alai muhum mishchila. And then to draw down from that place, from that holy anointment, to draw it down into the level of Kudsha Brichu. V'asel is mashchem betam l'chalam, and then you draw it down into all worlds. V'ksiv v'chaltav zot v'Hashem Elokecha. Therefore, it says you should eat, you should become satisfied, and you draw down a Bracha, and you draw down the blessings to Hashem all the way to the state of Elokecha. So therefore, the Zohar says a person should do a lot of kavanah. Therefore, a person has to do a lot of intention and a lot of heart to intention. And someone that draws down these blessings from the source of all blessings to the Holy One, to Kudsha Brichu, is Baruch v'natul chukayim me'ina baruchin b'kadmisa d'cholam v'tata. This person receives the blessings first, before it's received into the upper and lower worlds. Kiven the Shmei Kudsha Brichu is Baruch mitama nachas v'shar reisha chuk l'kadma. And therefore, the first of the blessings rests upon the head of the person that's saying the blessings. And therefore, kivan dahi brachas asi v'shayra reisha, since these blessings now are now placed upon the person that's saying the blessings, mitama nispashet b'chalama. From there, it's expressed and it permeates the entire world. This is what the Zohar says. So let's try to understand this a little bit more deeper, and first to understand literally what the Zohar is trying to say, and then understand what's the Zohar deeply saying. Just the reading of the words. What's the Zohar saying? The Zohar is saying that when a person doesn't recite a blessing, there is an element of theft. Again, we're talking about the blessing after the meal. Blessing the beginning of the meal, we said that the Gemara talks about, but over here the Zohar is talking about apparently the blessing after the meal. The Bracha, after you ate and after you're satisfied and after you're satiated. If you don't recite the blessing, you're stealing from the Creator. You're stealing from, but the way the Zohar describes it, it doesn't say you're stealing from Hashem, from the Ein Sof, but the Zohar says you're stealing from Kudsha Brichu. You're stealing from the level of the Holy One, blessed be He. Kudsha Brichu. What does this mean? And then the Zohar continues. And when you recite a blessing, you're drawing down the light from the source of blessings. You're drawing down this from the source of all blessings. And where you're drawing it down, you're drawing down from the source of all blessings to the place of Kudsha Brichu, to the place of the Holy One. And from there, it's mispashet, and it's just drawn down into the entire world. And also, the Zohar continues, it's also the same thing also within you. That you receive it upon you, and then from there, it's mispashet, it extends and expands into the entire world. What does this mean? Let's try to understand this. What is the idea of... So there's a dynamic here, where a person's depleted of energy, a person's hungry, a person feels depleted, they need fuel, they need oxygen, and they need literally food to keep them going, and everything in this world needs food. So when a person takes in food, sustenance, a person eats. So what they're doing is they're receiving now chayas, they're receiving now life. And like the pasuk says, this week's Parsha, Lo yal alechem levadi yichiyot. Not on bread alone does man survive. A person lives from the Devar Hashem, from the word of Hashem, the animating divine force that's enlivening this food. So a person feels depleted of koyach, of energy. And then they receive from food. So let's say a person eats. What they're doing is they're receiving energy. But how does a person receive this? How does a person receive it? The process of eating is that life feeds off death. How does a person, all forms of life, in order for life to receive, it needs to receive from something. And then it receives life from it. And then it gets energized and becomes alive. But in order to receive that thing, whatever it needs to receive, there has to be a death of something prior in order to receive that life. So there's a living apple. There's a living tree. The tree is alive. And the tree has, let's say, an apple on the tree. And the apple is an expression of the aliveness of the tree. Then a person comes and plunks the apple from the tree. Or even the apple dies from the tree and falls off the tree. So there's an experience, a conceptual experience of a form of death. There's the mipiria, like the Zohar speaks in Beracha, that the idea of mipiria, taking from the fruit, is from. The idea of a mem is mavis, represents death. So every time you're eating, you're taking something off something else. Or if you take, if a person eats an animal or eats any form of life that a person's eating that was prior alive, and that's why you only eat things that are once alive, that have the capacity for sustenance. So you take that thing that was alive, even water, it was part of a Mayim Chaim, a living waters. And when a person pulls the water out of the water and takes a cup of the water, they're drawing out, there's like a death of that cup of water from the original source of the water. Or an apple that dies from the tree and then is being received. Or an animal that is slaughtered, that has shchita, and then you're eating that food. Or a fish that's pulled from its water and then you eat it. And a sifasim shu shchitasim, like you pull it out of the water, and that's the process of its being ritually slaughtered, and then you can eat it. But there's a death of something in order to receive life. So the dynamic of creation is that life feeds off death, but in order to receive life from something that dies, we must say that there's still a living aliveness in that thing that's giving us life. A person feels depleted. So in this analogy, the person that's feeling depleted because they're hungry feels like a sort of type of death, which means they're dying. Of course, not literally, but the beginning of the experience of death is that they're being depleted of their energy. So then the process of this dying process, and then they eat, let's say, an apple, and then they receive nourishment, and they feel alive again. They feel uplifted, and they feel that they have energy again. So what you're doing is you're taking something that was alive, still has a little bit chayas. It's almost like when you, for example, let's say you have something plugged in, and then you plug it out, some type of gadget, and then it slowly dies, but there's still some pulsating electrical current that's still giving it some life, but it's not attached to the source. So it still has some type of residue that's still alive. And if you eat the apple when it's still fresh, it can give you chayes, it gives you energy, it gives you life force. Of course, the apple is once attached to the tree, and therefore it received life from the tree. But the moment you pull the apple off the tree, if you wait too long and the apple dries up and loses its life, then it becomes no longer healthy. So in order to receive life, you need something that was otherwise it starts rotting and starts ruining. But in the original, in the first moments where it's pulled out of this plug, so to speak, that thing still has residue or reshimu of life. And when a person eats that, they're receiving nourishment. The Alter Rebbe explains this in Matayu, but the idea is from a higher spiritual world, and that's why you can give nourishment to the human being and the Adam. The Alter Rebbe explains this many times in the Torah. But the idea is that there's some type of life within this thing, and when you pull it off, there still has a regime, it still has an imprint of life, and then when you're eating it, you receive life. That's the way a person eats. That's the definition of eating. So the process of eating is really a process of ingesting something that has life, but was already cut off from its source of life. And in the process of eating, which is the idea of achila, that's why achila is numerically 66, which is the same numerical eye as Hashem Adonai with the koilel. The idea of Hashem Adonai is din, judgment, constriction, death. The idea of using the 32 the teeth of the mouth, which is connected to also connected to the 32 names of Elokim that appears in Bereshis, which is the idea of all about constrictions and judgments and gvuras and breaking apart and digesting and cutting through. This is the Arizal talks about at great length in this week's Parsha on Ekev, look at the Torah, of what the mitzvah of how a person has to eat and how a person has to do with intention. But the idea is that you're drawing out in life, and the process of drawing in life is drawing in life that was once separated. Now, what gives life to the tree? What gives life to the animal? What gives them life? So the world as we experience it is the world of Malchus. And Malchus is a code word also for Knesset Yisrael, but the word is the word of Malchus, the receiver. That's the recipient of this world. The world is the makabel, the receiver of divine energy, of divine life. So the process is that beyond everything has a mashpia makabel, everything has a receiver and a giver. And every level every level of giver is a receiver in comparison to the higher level of giver. So Malchus receives life from Zohar. That's the way the Zohar explains this. Which means that Malchus, the recipient of life. We see trees that are alive. We see animals that are alive. We see life teeming with life. This world teeming with life. This is because there's a shefa, there's a flow that comes through Kutsha Bricha, which is transcendent one. Kutsha Bricha represents Zohar, which is the level above Malchus, the transcendent one. That's what we say, L'Shem Yucha Kutsha Bricha V'Shchinte, the drawing of the transcendence into the place of the immediate. The immediate part of life is the expression of life in the world the way we see it in the natural order, in the natural life, the trees and the plants and the aliveness of life and rivers flowing and animals walking. This is and teeming. This is the place of life. How is this life received? Where's the shefa that comes from this life? Where's the flow that comes from this life, the divine flow? That comes from Kutsha Bricha. That comes from the Madrega, the one level that's beyond that, which is transcendent of creation, which is flowing into this world. Okay, now, what a person does when they eats, if a person doesn't make a blessing, both before and after, but specifically after here, and it also works for before, but let's understand this. When a person eats something, so a person takes an apple. What you're doing is, let's say you pull the apple off, you plunk the apple off the tree. So there was a Kutsha Bricha, divine life force. Moitzi Pi Hashem, that there was a divine life force that was pulsating through the tree that gives it life to the tree, that the tree is alive. The apples are alive, or the animals alive, and the water is alive, and everything is alive. There was a pulsating life force, which is transcendent of creation, that enters into the creation and gives life to this tree. Now, when a person plunks the apple to eat it, what they're doing is theft. Because what are they doing? They're cutting off the life force that it no longer is experienced in this apple. This apple now is cut off from its source. And what's occurring here on a deep metaphysical level is that you're separating now the Malchus from Kutsha Bricha. You're separating the recipient of the divine life force, which is Kutsha Bricha, which is the flow that's coming down into this world, that's giving life to this tree, giving life to this apple. You pull the apple, you plunk the apple off the tree, you're separating now Kutsha Bricha V'Shchinte. You're separating the Malchus, Knesset Yisrael, from Zohar. You're separating the apple from the tree, or the apple from its source of life. And there's a double theft here that's occurring. This is what the Gemara also speaks about, this theft from Knesset Yisrael. There's a double theft that's happening. The theft is that you're literally separating the apple from the tree. So now Malchus, Knesset Yisrael, the apple no longer receives nourishment in the same revealed way as a life force that was pulsating through it when it was alive on the tree. So there's a stealing from Knesset Yisrael, that this apple now is no longer alive. That's the one side. On the other side, the Zohar says that in effect you're also stealing kaviyachol. This is obviously stealing in quotation marks. You're also stealing kaviyachol from kuchabrichu. Kaviyachol. Why? Why are you stealing from the holy transcendent one, kuchabrichu, the holy one? Because kuchabrichu is a metaphor would be, let's say there's a plus and a minus. There's an electric current, and the current's flowing, and it's plugged in. So there's a current that's flowing. The moment you pull out the plug, the current is no longer being expressed into the receiver. There's no longer a giver and a receiver in this current. So the current stops flowing. So the desire of the current, of course, this is a metaphor, a very high metaphor. The desire of the current is to flow, and to flow and to be expressed everywhere. It's expressed in the tree, and let's say we use the metaphor as a tree, so it's expressed in the tree and its fruit. Now when a person pulls off the apple from the tree, that current is no longer present into being expressed into the apple, and that's a theft, kaviyachol, because there's no possibility for that current, the divine life force, to be expressed in the same revealed way into the apple. Of course, it is revealed in the apple, and therefore the apple gives life as well. And it's still, we said, there's a reshimu of that, and still the apple has a koyach that still allows the apple to exist for a period of time. There's nefesh hamakayim, and nefesh hamachaya. There's an animating force and the existing force. But the current is no longer flowing. Since the current is no longer flowing, you're stealing from it. So there's a depletion. Just like there's a depletion, there's an emptying of the chayas, of the life force within the apple, because it's not separated from its source. The same thing also, the source is depleted of its possibility of giving into that apple, and that's theft. So therefore a person recites a bracha. What happens when a person recites a blessing? When a person recites a bracha, a blessing, a person is connected. When you say Baruch Atah Hashem, blessed you Hashem, what you're saying is that Baruch Atah Hashem, you are the source of all blessings. You, referring to Keser Kol Aksarim, or to the Ein Sof itself, the infinite light, the source. And you're drawing down the blessing. Let's understand this a little bit more specific. There's a life force that's called Kutshabrichu. That's the transcendent life force that's being expressed into this, using again this metaphor of this apple tree. It's being expressed into the tree and then expressed into the apple. This life force, this divine life force that's being expressed in this apple tree, is very specific. It's specific to the tree and very specific to this particular apple, which means, to say it in a different language, it's called Mamalakam. It's the light that comes, that is vested or revealed, vested in the particularities of the thing that it's vested in. So Kuchabrichu, this divine life force that's animating this apple tree, and now you're stealing it from it because there's no longer that divine life force that can be expressed in that apple, and both the theft from the apple itself, because it's disconnected from its source, and the theft from the source of the life, from the Chayes Eliki, the divine life force that's animating the apple tree, from its expression in a particular apple. You're separating from these two, so there's a theft, and it can no longer flow. This life force that's expressed in this apple tree is very specific. It's specific to the tree and very specific to the apple. What happens when a person makes a blessing? When it says Baruch Atah Hashem, when a person makes a blessing, so it says the Zohar, also lemishcha chayim b'mekor chayim. A person is now drawing from the source of all blessings. You're saying that I'm not connected. The apple tree has a chayis, has a life force that's very much that's formed kaviyachol. To use a metaphor, it's formed as a very particular life force. It's in the tree and specifically to the apple. But when a person recites a blessing, they're drawing down even from a higher source that's not particular, that's transcendent of any type of apple and any type of tree. It's the life force itself. There's the specific life force which animates and gives life to this particular apple or this particular animal or this particular body of water, and it's formed and shaped as if it's memala. There's a particularity to this life force that's animating it in a very specific way. The life force that exists within an apple tree is different than the life force that exists in a pear tree, and certainly different than the life force that exists within a fish. It's a different form because it's being expressed in a particular form. One is expressed in a fish, and one is expressed in an apple. So it's tailored specific to that particular way that it's going to be expressed in this world. But when a person, and now this koyach, this life force, is depleted because it's not being expressed any longer within the apple. But what does a person do when they recite a blessing? They're drawing down from the source of life, which is not particular to the apple or the tree or to the pear tree or to the fish. This is a general life force which is higher and is transcendent of all particularities and all specifications, and you're drawing down a light. So now that light, where does the blessing that you're drawing down this life is now drawn down into the place of Kudsha B'richu. That's what the Zohar is saying. You're drawing it down into Kudsha B'richu, the level of the specific life force that came and animated this apple tree is now feeling depleted. Now you're drawing down from a higher life force, which is not specific, general, and you're fusing this Kudsha B'richu with a new empowerment to give more life force and to bring more trees and to more apple trees. That's what the Zohar is saying. In our personal life, what this means as well is as follows. Specifically, when we're talking about making a blessing, difference between a blessing that before you eat and after eating. Even though before eating and after eating, you could read the Zohar that means also before eating, like the Gemara says also as well. And you're drawing down the same thing because every time you're doing a bracha, you're doing Baruch Ata. You're saying you are the source of blessings, the root, the cause, the original life force. And then it's in very specific. But when you recite a blessing for specific, before you eat, what you're reciting is for a very specific thing. You're saying you're holding an apple, you plunk an apple off a tree. You're holding an apple in your hand, and you say, you are the source of the blessings, who animates and gives life to this particular fruit of the tree. So you're speaking about the specific life force that's specific, that is drawn from the source of all life and is specific to this particular apple. Very specific. That's when you say a blessing before you eat. And you're very grateful. You say you're holding a piece of bread in your hand and you're making a maitzi, or you're holding a cup of water and you say shahakal. But it's very specific to the particular thing that you're holding in your hand. If you're holding a fruit, you say one blessing. If you're holding a vegetable, you say another blessing. You hold something that grows from the ground, that's a form of bread, you say another blessing. So each one is very specific to that idea. Not only is it specific to that idea, but also you're eating from, when a person eats, there's a certain sense of chesed, a certain sense of absence, depletion. And you say that by me eating this apple, I'm going to feel now invigorated. I'm going to feel like a new life is entering into me. But when a person eats and has already eaten, you've eaten, and you've already been satiated, you've already been fulfilled, now you don't feel chesed. Now you don't feel empty, you feel shalom, you feel healthy. You feel complete, you feel satiated. You feel like there's a soiva, there's a satisfaction. You're not overeating, you don't feel stuffed, but you feel satiated, you feel whole, you feel good. Now when a person, after they eat, and now they recite a blessing, or Beracha, and now they're reciting a blessing, what they're doing now is they're saying is that we're drawing down blessings from the source of blessings, not from a place where there's a chesed, where there's an absence, and I need to be filled from an absence, but in a place of pure abundance. Because I'm no longer hungry and therefore I need to eat. I am already satiated in a place of wholeness. I am already in a state of satisfaction. And yet, despite the fact that I'm satisfied, I still recognize that I can draw down something and I can bless. Not only could I be grateful, but I can draw down the source of all blessings. And when we say the blessings after the Beracha Hamazon, we say the blessings after we eat. Certainly, if you're eating bread, the savata, in a way that you're completely satisfied and satiated, and you had a meal, you say, We talk about Hashem that gives nourishment and sustenance to all of creation, because infinite is Hashem's kindness. We're talking about infinity. We're talking about blessings, not for a specific thing. We're saying that Hashem, you are the source of all life, the apple tree and the fish and the water and all of my existence is I'm a receiver from all of the blessings and all of the life that's being given into this world. And the world is full of abundance and full of plenty and full of aliveness. And I'm grateful for that and I'm thankful for that. And so I'm connected to this infinite power. So when a person says the blessings after the meal, specifically after the meal, this also works before the meal, but certainly when a person says the blessings after the meal and they connect Beracha and they're blessing, they're saying that thank you Hashem, and I feel very grateful. Not only am I expressing it with speech, but I feel in a posture of gratefulness for the abundance and the plenty that there is in the creation, that I can always receive life from everything that's being given to me, from all the pleasures of the world, from every single fruit and every single beautiful thing in this world is an abundance of divine blessings and revelation and plenty and shefa that I see in this world. And I'm open to this experience. That I see the whole world is full of your kindness, full of your goodness, and full of your blessings. Then you're drawing down from the source of all blessings. And as I says, it's even deeper. Not only are you drawing down from the source of all blessings to draw down to the specific life force that comes to animate that particular fruit that we spoke before, but now you become, the blessings is something that you receive first. And from you, it's mispashet, it expands to all the creation. Because now you're in a posture that you're not saying, I lack something and I need something for me. It's very specific to me. I need this apple to satiate my own feeling of lack of depletion of energy. So please, thank you Hashem for giving me this specific apple that I pull out from the tree and I separate from the tree and I cause a death of that apple in order to give me, for me, very specific, because I was feeling dead and now I feel alive. That's one thing. That's one type of blessing. But when the blessing that you say after the meal, you're already satiated and you're not talking about the specifics anymore. You're saying there's an abundance of life and I feel part of this abundance, part of the shefa, part of this flow. I feel part of the divine expression of kindness that's being expressed in this world, of shefa that's being expressed in this world. That Hashem is constantly giving with grace and with kindness into this world, the world of blessing. And I feel in a place of abundance because I'm not feeling in a place of chesed. I'm not feeling that I need this specific thing to give me satisfaction because I already ate. I'm already full. I feel full. And in this place of fullness, I feel the fullness of the Creator, the fullness of the Creator's light. Then I become part of the shefa itself. I become part of the source of blessings, and blessings for me is expanded. And this is what the Torah actually describes. That Hashem says, you will become the Makar Bracha. Not only will you be blessed, and in a very specific way, but you become the source of blessing. You become part of the divine life force that's animating, giving life and sustenance and goodness and kindness and expression of to the entire world. And this is what the Zohar is saying. This is the highest level of blessings. And we should be Zohar to live this way. We should merit to always live in this way of a sense of abundance and being part of seeing Hashem's blessings throughout all of our life, not the specific parts of our life, to every single aspect of our life, and being part of the collective blessings that's being revealed in Hashem's world every moment.